Good afternoon, everyone. It is November 8th, 2018. You see here, I'm at DC Clothesline. And this is an article by Mike Adams. Midterm results may have saved America from civil war. Here's what to expect. I don't think it saved America from anything. I mean, after all, the leftist scum did show up at Tucker Carlson's house in a big mob. So no, it didn't save us from civil war. And if you want to be saved from the civil war, you are a pussy. He says, we may recall that months ago he warned of a particular scenario that could lead to an eruption of mass violence on the left, escalating to civil war. The two triggers he named are the Kavanaugh being confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and number two, the GOP holding the House in the midterm elections. I don't think it's really about who's holding the House. It's about two cultures that are not compatible with each other. That's what it's about. One culture, and by the way, I'm not for either culture. They're both very, very controlling. And if you've noticed on mainstream media, there we go. If you noticed on mainstream media, in the boxes where they say the Republicans might control, it's all boils down to control. Who is going to control whom? That's what it's about. And by the way, who are they wanting to control anyway? It's pretty easy. They want to control myself and all of you. That's who they want to control. That's what all of this violence, these elections, and police, and laws, and all that shit, that's what it's all about, is control. It's about people having the belief that one small group of people has a right to control everyone else. Now, I was watching this press conference with the head of Homeland Security and somebody else, and it slips my mind. I wish I would have talked about it right afterwards, but they were talking about how they wanted Iran, or demanded, really, Iran to do X, Y, or Z. I mean, who the fuck do these people think they are? What right do they have to tell another nation they may or may not do whatever? I mean, who the fuck do these people think they are? Do they think they're gods? I think they do. I think they really believe they are gods. And they act like it. But let's see what old dickhead Mike Adams has to say. As we all now know, the GOP lost the House, handing Dems enough of a split victory to avoid them taking to the streets in an eruption of violence. But of course this is not true because, again, they went after Tucker Carlson. Now I'm not, I like some of his newscasts. I'm not a fan of his way of thinking, but some of his newscasts are okay. And he's only talking. I mean, that's all the dude's doing, and yet these leftist scum think somehow it's appropriate to show up at this dude's house because he has a show on Fox News. So, he's wrong. Mike Adams is wrong. Again. He says, but make no mistake, Democrats only accept the outcome of this election because they won something. They didn't win what they wanted to win, though. They have failed to take the House, or had they failed to take the House, they would have denounced the election process and revolted with violence. And they're still revolting with violence. All right. This is really ironic, this last little spew here. They were fully prepared to do this, and the most radical Democrats remain dedicated to their goal of sweeping all constitutionalists out of power, assassinating the president, and installing a communist leader to run their utopian society rooted in authoritarianism. Well, our society is rooted in authoritarianism already. Where do you think they learned this shit from? They didn't learn it from, our so-called democratic government. There's nothing democratic about it. When you have almost half of the nation refusing to participate in the political process, you know something's wrong. You know, and by the way, I commend those people who refuse to take part in this dirty, corrupt, evil beast system. I do. He says, get ready for 2 years of pure comedy from the House. I really don't think we're going to make it to these 2 years. I don't think we're going to make it these 2 years. And I could be wrong. I mean, I could be. Without a major escalation in violence. Without the country falling into more financial turmoil. It's going to happen. I just posted a video about how the governor of Maine, was in glee over the idea of using guillotines on people. So, Mike Adams is full of shit, people. You should not listen to him. He really needs to stick to health. He really does. He needs to stick to health because he doesn't know nothing about freedom. Freedom isn't hundreds of thousands of laws. That's not freedom. That's the opposite of freedom. That's slavery. Freedom isn't having armed men running around our streets, shooting people, and looking for things to arrest people over. That's not freedom. That's the opposite. That is slavery. I mean, it might be different if these people lived up to some kind of standard, but they don't. They all commit criminal acts and hide behind the state when they do. And of course, the state almost always gives them a free pass to commit these crimes. So, come on. There we go. We have bigger threats. We have superbugs. They pose a very real threat to humanity. Superbugs, those pesky bacteria that have evolved to become resistant to antibiotics, are on the rise and pose a very real threat to humanity. And I know this to be a fact because I had a severe bacterial infection for about 4 months, and I'm just now losing all the sores that were on my body as a result of that infection. And it took a lot to get rid of it. I mean, a whole lot. And I wanted to touch on this earlier and didn't. Peter Schiff, the truth is we don't have a booming economy. And this just goes to show you, in the next couple of years, we're going to get a much worse downturn in our economy. We will. It's gotten worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, our presidents, both Barack Obama and Donald Trump and everyone before them, try to sugarcoat what's really going on so they continue to get the support from their followers. Economic guru Peter Schiff doesn't mince words when he declared the precarious state the United States economy has found itself in. Schiff says the truth is we don't have a booming economy, and he's not the only one who has noticed. October was the worst month for global equities in more than 6 years. Global stock markets lost 7.5%, their worst month since May of 2012, or even with the late rally, it was the biggest monthly decline in the Nasdaq since 2008. This is from Peter Schiff. All of the bulls were out in force on the financial networks claiming that the correction is over. Everybody was confident that the lows are in, that the big back-to-back rally is proof and you better buy now. Otherwise, you're going to miss the rally. And this is the typical correction, and now it has run its course. And you know what? If this was really, or if this really was the end of the correction, most likely there wouldn't be so many people that were so confident that it is over. You'd have a lot more fear, especially on Halloween. The fact that there is no fear, to me, shows that it's more likely that this is not the end of the correction, but the beginning of the bear market, and that this rally is a correction. Peter Schiff. So, again, you're being lied to by the president, you're being lied to by a lot of people, and you dupes keep on believing it. And you keep on believing it, and I don't know what to say anymore. I try to be brutally honest, but for some reason, brutal honesty isn't popular. I guess I should flip-flop here and just say the things people want to hear. Oh, it's okay. Everything is okay. Right? I don't think so. That's not my style. I mean, every day, there's something. A lot of somethings, in fact. And it's not, it's never good news. Have you noticed that? How rarely we get any kind of good news. Here we go with the Ebola outbreak again. CDC director, Congo's Ebola outbreak may not be containable, and to me that is a major red flag. To me, they are saying, hey, we're not going to be able to contain this, and it's going to make it to the European continent and the Australian continent and the North American continent and so on and so forth. But let's see. Robert Redfield, the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said that people need to be prepared for the worst. Redfield said the Democratic Republic of Congo's newest Ebola outbreak may not be containable. And I'd like to point, by the way, that the Congo calls itself a democratic republic. Not true. Just like the United States isn't really a republic or a democracy. Tom Inglesby, the director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in Baltimore, said that if the Ebola outbreak becomes endemic in the Congo's North Kivu province, it shows we've lost the ability to trace contacts, stop transmission chains, and contain the outbreak. In this situation, Ebola could spread, which could negatively impact both trade and travel, according to a report by Becker's Hospital Review. I do not think this is one of the challenges we'll have to see, whether we're able to contain, control, and end this current outbreak with the current security situation, or do we move into the idea that this becomes more of an endemic Ebola outbreak in this region, which we've never really confronted. This comes from that same Dr. Redfield in the Washington Post. And according to the Washington Post, if international Ebola containment efforts fail in the Congo, it would mark the first time the virus was not stopped since 1976, when Ebola was first identified. The current Ebola outbreak is going on its fourth month, totaling 300 cases and 186 deaths as of November 4th. And allow me to point out that those are the cases and deaths that they know about. One more, maybe two more paragraphs here. The problems with containment of this particular Ebola outbreak stem from the fact that the disease is spreading in an active war zone, with several armed groups attacking health officials, government aides, and civilians. Some civilians with Ebola have refused treatment, and healthcare workers are still being infected. About 60 to 80% of new cases do not show an epidemiological link to prior cases. The daily rate of new Ebola cases had more than doubled in early October. In addition, there is community resistance and a deep mistrust of the government as the raging outbreak continues to spread through an active war zone. The World Health Organization, CDC, and other international health organizations say they are worried about the current Ebola outbreak spreading to port cities like Butembo. I don't know if that's correct or not, Butembo, which will only exacerbate infection transmission rates. Oh, it turns out those were the last two paragraphs. So, there you go. More Ebola. And I've said before, if one or two of these passengers or people make it onto a flight, it's going to spread like wildfire. And I would much rather deal with a civil war than an Ebola outbreak. At least you can shoot bullets at your opponents in a civil war. All you can do in an Ebola outbreak is go and fucking hide. And that's what I will do. There's one more I'm going to cover here. The economy does not care who won the midterm elections. This comes from Brandon Smith. And he is at altmarket.com. Over the past few weeks, I've received numerous requests from readers to publish my predictions on the outcome of the midterm elections, but I did not do so for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I view the election process very differently from many people. I do not see it as legitimate in the slightest. Therefore, my predictions of the past have been based not on voter turnout polls or any other such nonsense. And it's just nonsense. And by the way, and not legitimate. Elections are molded events, framed under the false pretense that the left-right paradigm in politics is real. As far as the upper echelons of politics are concerned, the paradigm is completely theatrical. And it is. It's nothing but theater. This shit with the mainstream media smearing Donald Trump is just that. Theater. To be sure, the average American does lean either left or right on the political spectrum. Such divisions are a natural part of social discourse. However, political theater is designed in most cases to drive citizens away from centrally shared principles of freedom and equal opportunity, not equal outcome, and push them to the far ends of the spectrum toward extremism and zealotry. And you can see this extremism and zealotry in both parties. And to be clear, there is no good form of zealotry. They're NPCs, okay? Both sides are NPCs. Zealots are not self-aware, and that's what makes them NPCs, and they never subject their own passions to scrutiny. They operate on pure assumption that they are divinely correct in everything they do, and anyone who disagrees with them, even in the slightest, is an enemy that must be destroyed by any means necessary. And that makes these people your fucking enemy. If you're not one of them, they see you as an enemy. And I've been trying to get this through to all you normal people out there forever. And, well, I'm trying to find where I left off. Okay. Zealotry is the root of human atrocity. Zealots are a tidal wave of war and genocide. They are a cancer on the soul of mankind. Certain groups of people within the establishment, namely globalists that desire total centralized control of every aspect of economy and society, prefer that the public remain as radicalized and divided as possible. For them, zealotry is an asset. To pursue this goal, they purchase allegiance from politicians through various means, including financial favors, media favors, and campaign contributions. There are very few people left in politics that are not part of the club. Both Democrat and Republican leaders are essentially on the same side, the globalist side. They attack each other with rhetoric, but when it comes down to actual policy and action, they are all very similar. The outcome of the elections is therefore erroneous in the long term. Their only purpose is to manipulate the public psychology to a certain reactionary endgame. When I predicted the election of Donald Trump in 2016, many months before voting commenced, I did so based on which election outcome better served the interest of globalists. I concluded with the highest certainty that Donald Trump would win based on the same premise that drove me to predict the success of the Brexit vote in the UK, an illusionary foothold on political power, only to then collapse the global economy on their heads and blame them for the disaster. And I've been saying this the whole time. Okay. At the time, it was unclear whether Trump would play along with the globalist narrative of conservatives as selfish, bumbling villains. Today, with his consistent relationships with banking elites and globalist think tank members, it is obvious that Trump intends to play the role he has been given. Trump's policy actions the past 2 years indicate that he is following a model very similar to the one Republican President Herbert Hoover used just before the crash of 1929. Trump was a perfect choice for the globalists. So the question I had to ask in terms of the midterm elections is, what outcome best serves globalist interests this time? The only conclusion I could come to in this instance was, it didn't matter who wins the midterms. The globalists will get their economic crash regardless, and conservatives will be blamed. And I've said this the entire time, from the time Donald Trump announced his intention to run for president all the way to now. The ultimate outcome turned out to be mixed, with Democrats taking the House and Republicans holding the Senate. The assertion in the mainstream being that this will result in political gridlock. And that's perfect. That's exactly what the globalists want. In terms of stock markets, the reaction is not surprisingly apathetic, as it has been not long after almost every election event. But there are many that assume this is a euphoria that will last. Laura Tab euphoria lasts longer, by the way. So, everything I've been talking about is quickly running its course, and the people, the dupes from both the left and right, are going to be the ultimate victims in the end. So, hopefully, after everyone suffers greatly, after a few 100,000 people are executed either by guillotine or cyanide or hydrogen cyanide gas, maybe then they will come around to reason, but I doubt it. Till next time, kill the state and live free. And kill the state before the state kills you.